So I just want to make this point really quickly. And today I was going through. I actually enjoy reading Reddit and Quora sometimes. Sometimes they're just weird. Sometimes they're very good because you get a feeling for what people are thinking. And right now, in Kansas City, there was a referendum to approve, sales tax, I believe, for stadiums for the Royals baseball team and the Kansas City Chiefs. They just won a Super Bowl and hopefully win one more, making it 3. So, people in this Reddit thread were just going off, oh, I'm tired of subsidizing these billionaires. Well, let me tell you something. We cannot escape the fact that we have gravity on Earth. Can we agree on that? Okay. We cannot just fly. I can't jump 20 feet in the sky. I'm not Superman. There are things that are facts beyond change. And a rational, reasonable, thoughtful person understands that. There are certain things that are gravity. You don't have to like it necessarily. I'm not asking you to like it, but it's reality. The reality is this. People in Kansas City, all of them are like, oh, I'm so tired of you billionaire. First of all, how much money do we make from them? How much sales tax do we get from all the beer, food, sales of tickets that are sold at these games, right? That's a factor they need to look at. Number 2, is there a prestige that comes from having a sports franchise in your city? Absolutely. That's why cities are fighting for them. But here's the reality they really miss, okay? And you may not be in favor of having citizens, taxpayers, pay for NFL or MLB teams, stadiums. That's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. But keep this in mind. Talk to the people in St. Louis. Talk to the people in Oakland. They lost the Raiders, now they're losing the Athletics. Those are communities that said, no, we're not going to do it. That's fine. But this is a free country, and this is free enterprise. So the Raiders left, the Rams left St. Louis, all of these different teams moved around. Hell, the Kansas City Chiefs were from Dallas originally. They moved. Why compete with the Cowboys? And they probably got a good deal here. So the point is this, if we don't offer them an incentive to stay, other people will, and more than we would offer if we had them stay, right? They could probably get a lot better deal. Are you kidding me? How much? Let's see. What major city right now in the United States does not have an NFL team that would kill for one? Right? Think of one. There's been too many in Florida already. Atlanta's got one, so that's out. Okay. There's plenty in LA. San Diego wouldn't probably mind a team, but I don't know if they're going to pay for it or not. I can't think of one off the top of my head, which is unusual. It's very unusual. So anyway, let's say it's San Diego, just for purposes of this discussion. So San Diego says, hey, we're going to build you a brand new stadium. We're going to give you tax incentives of X, Y, Z, tax abatements of A through L, right? All these different things that are much more than we're giving the Chiefs in Kansas City or giving the Royals in Kansas City. The reality is that's going to happen. And they will leave. And it's not a threat. It's just like if you had a business, right? And the city that you lived in all of a sudden raised taxes or raised the expense or fees for whatever business you do. Let's say you have a shoe store and there's all of a sudden a SOLE tax, S-O-L-E, right? And across the street in a different city, there's not that SOLE tax and your lease is up anyway. You're going to move across the street? Well, hell yeah. Who wouldn't? So these people are going, I don't want to support these sport franchises. Well, guess what? Say goodbye to them then. Because we don't have the power in that negotiation. We have some because there's a branding. And certainly they do make money from being the Kansas City Chiefs. I understand that. But they might make as much money being the, Wichita War Eagles or something. Just saying. You be careful what you ask for. Ask people in St. Louis. Ask people in Cleveland when the Browns first left. Ask people in San Diego, in Oakland, And then look at the economic impact that they do have, which is positive. The Chiefs owner Clark Hunt, and I'm not a fan, or I'm not a person who's like thinks billionaires are cool or anything like that at all. I judge people on what they do and how they act and how they interact. And Clark Hunt has been we've won all these Super Bowls underneath him. Since he's been the owner, he was a young owner. His father was the owner before, so he had to fill those shoes. Not easy. He's also head of Hunt Midwest. I think that's what it is. It's the holding company that the Hunt family has, which has many, many more businesses than just the Chiefs. Lamar Hunt made a lot of money before the Chiefs, so keep that in mind. So he probably makes more money from his other franchises. I don't know, but he's not trying to milk just the Chiefs for his family's lifestyle. It's not happening. And also, they're very conservative. They're not flashy. He's not like Robert Kraft. He doesn't have to be in the picture every time. If you've noticed at the Super Bowls, he's very humble. He just says something very quick, like, thanks to Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. He thanks to the appropriate people. He doesn't self-congratulate a lot. This last year, they were doing it in honor of his mother, which I thought was beautiful. But I think he's a great owner. And we're lucky to have him. So instead of, I want to support the Chiefs, maybe we should look at this rationally and go, we have a good owner, right? And someday it's likely to be owned by a female, which is great. I think the daughter's name is Gracie, if I remember correctly. So keep that in mind. If you don't have to be a baseball fan, but if you're a fan of your city, think about the impact in a positive way. All the jobs it creates, just the entertainment value. What are you going to do if you're in a business and you're used to taking people to sporting events, like you're kind of in sales or something? You're going to take them to a AA baseball game? You're going to take them to Kansas City Royals playing the Yankees next week, right? Yeah. You want to play? Hey, the Chiefs are playing the Raiders this week. Would you like tickets to that? Would you like tickets to the Arena League football game? Not really. I mean, nothing against Arena League. You see what I'm saying? I mean, those are minor examples, but people need to keep in mind the positive. People are so one-dimensional now. They don't. It's like, and I don't like liberals because liberals want to tell us how to think, and they don't know what the fuck they're doing either. And then the radical right people are batshit crazy. I don't like either presidential candidate, by the way. I'm biased against both of them. I think they're both morons. One of them's a deviant, one of them is old, but he's always been kind of weird anyway. Doesn't matter who I'm talking about because it fits both of them probably. Anyway, in order to get people to like them, they appeal to their lowest common denominator. These solutions to problems are not easy, and everybody thinks they are. But for example, liberals in general would say, oh, I'm in favor of a statute federally that punishes drug dealers who have weapons in part of that enterprise that they're in. Okay, that's a liberal belief, or a belief over here, right? Okay, that's rational. I agree with that too. But on the other hand, here's the competing value, and that is, statistically, African Americans serve higher and more prison sentences than Caucasians. So, hold on. If we're trying to combat the inequity and inequality in sentencing and criminal sentences, should we look at the impact that will have? It's called a 924C enhancement. And so what happens is, it was intended so if somebody has like kilos of cocaine or pounds and pounds of marijuana and they're using a weapon to keep it and defend it, or as part of ripping off the other drug dealer or whatever, that's when the statute kicks in. But how it's being used in application is, if you have a gun, like if you had a gun in the trunk, right, and this happened in a case, and one or two dipped, they call them wet cigarettes with PCP in them, you can get a serious, I can't remember off the top of my head, 5 or whatever more year enhancement consecutive to your other charges. Well, then you go, oh, it has a disparate impact on sentencing. You see how those two values now are competing? You can't have both, because you want to have punishment for drug dealers who have weapons. I understand that, I agree. But you don't want to increase the inequality in our criminal sentencing and our prison system. Something has to give. You have to use logic. There are certain things. We all want a perfect world, but you're going to have to find some level of compromise without giving up your core. That's the art to it. And people are willing to do that. Oh, I hate corporate. We have to support the corporations. They get the profits and we have to pay for everything. Well, not exactly, you know. If you want to change that, you got to do it worldwide, because otherwise all the sports teams are going to move to Canada or Mexico. Because if the United States passed a statute, it's kind of like this BS with TikTok, which I think is just totally crappy that people in the United States are not speaking on behalf of TikTok, because it is unconstitutional, in my opinion. First of all, corporations are to be treated as people, not just citizens, have a right to equal protection under the law. That means the law will not be enforced one way if your name starts with the letter L, and a different way if it starts with the letter T, okay? And if it's both, you're LT. Anyway, if it's a B, there's a BLT. Sorry for the tangent. So, what do? Well, Congress says, oh, we think TikTok is bad because they could potentially give our data away to the Chinese, which there's never, even Congress and our Homeland Defense, they say it's a theoretical threat. It's never actually happened, so they've never done it. But are you kidding me? So nothing's ever happened that's a risk. That's correct. But you're thinking, well, yeah, okay. So they make a law. Usually, think about laws. Laws are, you go 70 miles per hour on the highway, right? That's a federal law. Then some places it's different. You have to have a car with tires on it and blinkers and things like that. Okay? Those apply to everybody, right? That's what laws do. They apply to all of us. They're the great equalizer. We all have to pay taxes. Now, of course, some people don't pay as much as they should. We all have to do, right? These are things that we all have to do. No, they don't like that. I don't want to deal with it. Oh, no. They're going to make a law that just says, TikTok, you have to divest of your Chinese holdings by this date or we'll ban you in the United States. What the hell is that about? The conduct is what, if there is a conduct that you are regulating or protecting the public from. If you get a chance, watch this documentary on Teddy Roosevelt. It's wonderful. He was really a progressive, no kidding, in that he thought people had a right to have their government do things like keep them from eating rancid beef, right? Oh, well. That there should be, let's make sure the beef people are eating is not going to kill them. Well, that's a good idea. That there shouldn't be monopolies. And a quick digression, people were getting in a TikTok-y pissing match about Apple. And I am not a fan of Apple. I think they're corporately evil. I think not only they exploit the Chinese, they take advantage of us, that those jobs should be here in the United States. And they will say, well, people don't have the training and technology to be able to build the iPhone here. You know what I say? Well, let's get them that training. Because there are a lot of Americans who, A, need the challenge and are smart enough, maybe not, they don't have the motivation yet, but we can help them with that. And we will help subsidize the training of them so you can have the phones made in the United States. In China, Apple has temporary workers, which are only supposed to be for like less than 6 months, according to Chinese law. I'm not going to predict and pretend to know anything about Chinese law, whether it's actually enforced or whatever, but I know that they violate it, nothing happens. They're using temporary workers to get away with cheaper. They're buying the iPhones from China for like $6 and selling whatever. It's a much lower, the markup is huge. And iPhones and Macs generally were more expensive before because they lasted. Now they have this planned obsolescence. So it's going to be no good in 5 years. I spent a shitload on a Mac in 2015, top of the line, everything, blah, 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 blah. It's crap now because it's slowed down. And I used to have an iMac I still have it. It works. It was in my law office. It was used a lot, and it still works, except they really don't support it anymore, and it got slower. They don't want you to keep it. They made these products that lasted, and then they realized we're not going to sell as many because people won't buy a new one. Why would you buy a new one if it doesn't? It works fine. People buy a new one because they have to have the new one. Fuck that. So now you're paying a lot of money for a product that they're not making, that they're exploiting somebody else, and it doesn't last as long. And so the discussion that we were talking about in this thread was, like Apple's ever going to get subject to a monopoly antitrust suit. Well, interestingly enough, they referenced the Southwestern Bell case. In that case, Southwestern Bell, AT&T had less than 42% of the market, okay? They were deemed to be a monopoly and had to break up. They called them the baby bells. There used to be Southwestern Bell, I think Eastern Bell, and whatever, right? So, what about Apple? Oh no, that'll never happen. Well, interestingly enough, Apple, I think, has 56 or more percent of the market. Now keep in mind, Android has the other portion, obviously, but that's a bunch of different manufacturers, right? Apple is one company. We're talking Android is Samsung, it's Motorola, is HTC still around, Sony, Huawei, even though they're not allowed to sell in the United States. Anyway, that's enough to be a monopoly. Will it ever happen? Hell no. No way. Teddy Roosevelt, if he were running for president now, would get booed off the stage because, well, he just made too much sense. He might have told people the truth instead of just what they wanted to hear. You know, it's not all glum and, down. And like Obama once said, and if you don't like Obama, that's your opinion. I like the guy personally. I'm not going to get into politics. I just think he was kind of a cool dude. And he said some stuff that was spot on. Here was one of them. He's being interviewed. This is after he's been president. And they're talking about Democrats. And keep in mind, he was a Democrat. He was a different kind of Democrat, but a Democrat indeed. And he goes, sometimes Democrats can kind of be a buzzkill. And that's so true. It's just like, they are kind of the party of the buzzkill. And if I swear to God, if I see Chuck Schumer up there anymore and his unaffected, dispassionate, here's Chuck Schumer, I am very angry about this stuff. Can you tell? I'm literally almost standing beside myself. And then got neck waddle, man. The West Virginian. Anyway, I just hope there are enough of us in the world, and forget about the upcoming election, which is important. And I don't know how I'm going to vote yet. I will not ever vote for someone who swore to uphold the Constitution and then tried to overthrow the government and then denies it. Not going to happen. My opinion, he should be hung because it's treason. And so should Rudy Giuliani, because Rudy Giuliani's like, let's have trial by combat. There was people killed as a result of their incendiary call to action. It was not just a speech. It was a call to action. It was a directive, and we'll be with you. Trial by combat. I'll be right there with you. Let's take it to them. Let's take over come on. Anyway, I'm not ever going to vote for somebody for president who wants to then disregard the Constitution. Because there are parts of the Constitution that, I like personally, but I believe in enforcing all of it. Strictly, literally, absolutely. I believe the First Amendment's absolute. Freedom of speech, to exercise it. Freedom to choose a religion, that's the free exercise clause. Anti-establishment, government should not have a religion, should not force a religion on anyone. All those are good, right? Second Amendment. This is where people go like, the Second Amendment people go, well, First Amendment should be, or whatever, right? They're not consistent. No, Second Amendment too, right? Just like I don't think people should be required to house soldiers in their house, which hopefully it's only mentioned in one Supreme Court case, which is odd because it has nothing to do with it, but not a real point of controversy. But people are absolute about the First Amendment, they skip the second. I'm sorry. You have a right to bear arms. Not bear arms. You have a right to keep and bear arms. It's in there. If you don't like it, repeal the Constitution, repeal the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights were amendments, remember that, people. They were put there because they were concerned about an effective federal government being a dictator of sorts, an autocrat, And keep in mind, historically, when we won the War of Independence, so to speak, when Cornwallis surrendered, I believe that was like 1781, and the Constitution wasn't for several years. We had the Articles of Confederation for a while, and they were so bad, our country damn near fell apart. There really was no power in the federal government. We didn't really have enough to get an army going. You know, the states really weren't interested in funding the federal government because they're like brand new states trying to figure their shit out. And meanwhile, you've got this Articles of Confederation, which were totally weak, and you had really the British could have. Hang on, let me ask you. What year was the Constitution signed? I think it was 1783. Let me see. Oh, gosh, 1787. Okay, so when did Cornwallis surrender at Yorktown? 1781. So 6 years we have a Articles of Confederation, weak central government, those problems. Then the Constitution is enacted, and the Bill of Rights are added as amendments to keep federal government from infringing on individual rights. And when they did that, they were very, very, very specific in their intent. It's like, these are not all of the rights that we're protecting. These are the ones we can think of right now. But just because we didn't put it in the Bill of Rights does not mean the federal government can infringe upon it. Just keep that in mind. My view of what government should do is totally different than a lot of people, and definitely most politicians. I believe government's job, primary directive, if not the only one, is to protect its citizens' rights. Bottom line. Everything else, you have a right not to be run over in the street. You have a right not to eat tainted beef. You know how you have a right to hire your own doctor. That's a whole nother can of worms. But anyway, where we started with all this is people in Kansas City need to realize that the Chiefs and Royals are of benefit to us. And this really is a choice, because if we don't support them and they've been, I mean, shit, I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I went to Royal Stadium when it opened, and I was really young. That's been a long time ago, right? My grandfather and I went to the Chiefs at Arrowhead the first year it was open. That was a long time ago. I was very, very young. I actually sat on Joe Namath's lap. That's a whole nother story, but the Jets were in town. Anyway, it's kind of reasonable. They're ready for an upgrade. And they've done several upgrades, and they did a good job with them. Both of them are beautiful. I wouldn't mind having them in separate places. I think it's been great that Eastern Jack has had the sports franchises for so long, but they've had their time. I think downtown would have been fine. I'm not opposed to putting it in Kansas if that's where they want to go. I think Missouri's stupid for letting that happen, but, people need to realize there's an upside to it. It's not just a benefit for the team. We need to realize what we're getting from it and act appropriately. It's a negotiation. They really are entitled to a new stadium, and if they don't get it here, they're going to get it someplace else. So, it's kind of like, did you ever have a really hot girlfriend, and she just had that one thing you didn't like, right? But you couldn't put up with that, so how'd that work out for you? That's a really bad analogy, but it's just there's nothing perfect in any negotiation. It's a give and take. But I do know that overall, if you use your brain, the upside, positives, and the revenue and the benefit to the community that both sports franchises bring to this city far outweigh any tax incentives or tax revenues we would be losing. Because you know what? If it weren't, then maybe we should do something about the politicians who are making that deal, right? And we get to vote on a referendum. Let's not be stupid. Let's be rational and say, is it a good thing for our community overall? Does it benefit us? Yeah. Okay. Well, let's do it then. That's my only point. I'm going to go. I need to take care of some other things. I've enjoyed being with you this afternoon, kind of an impromptu deal. And we'll be back on later. Tata. Peace out. Thank you, Soulshine, Russ, George Lowe, Carl Turner, Damien, Vicky Watson, MC, random ass name. That's a good one. Bobby Cosby. All right. Dendervon, Rewinds. Sarah Jane, Bad Boy. Oh, Bad Boy's here. All right. All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll see you next time on Biscuit Live.